What's the strangest thing you found in your house/property after you bought it? Unexploded WWII parachute bomb. Had to have the bomb squad come out and collect it. I'd kept it. There was a kitchen hidden behind a wall, fully furnished, with a dead mouse under the table that was practically mummified. Okay, you are respectfully requested to educate the Reddit masses on A. How a complete kitchen was missed from the floor plan, B. How you found it, and C. What was in it. The building used to have the upstairs as a separate apartment, and they built a wall blocking the kitchen. We found it because there were 2 windows that shouldn't have been there, so we had the wall taken down. Inside was a fully furnished kitchen. Stove, fridge, dishes and sink, even a small diner table and 2 chairs. Not me, but a family friend. He used to live across town from us in a sketchy neighborhood before moving with his wife to a house nearer us. We were over at his new house when he was telling us about how he was glad he'd moved because that house gave him the creeps. Apparently, when he moved in, there was a room in the basement with the locks on the outside and a dirty mattress on the inside. He said he always felt off in that room and rarely went in it. It's been a few years, but I still think about that house. It used to creep me TF out. I found a VHS tape from a defunct rental store in the basement. Someone stashed it away in the woodboards of the ceiling and left it there after moving. Part of me felt I was about to get cursed by the ring ghost, but popped it into an old VCR anyways. Started it at a halfway point and found some crazy 80s porn. Couldn't stop laughing at the absurdity of it. A mason jar was found on a shelf inside a bedroom closet above the door. It had piece of white fabric tape on it. Written on the tape was Jay's fart jar. I didn't want to open it to confirm. It went right in the recycling bin. When I was a teen, my mom worked for a cool little insurance company that was family owned. When I was 16, the family wanted to expand and asked my mom if she wanted to be the lead for expansion, which basically meant the family bought a small 2-bedroom house a few towns over and used the house as a second office. My mom was the only worker in the office for a long time, so I'd often go with her after school and just kinda help file and explore the area. One day I noticed a tiny door inside a closet on the top floor in the unused bedroom. So naturally I went exploring. The door took you through a small crawl space like tunnel until you suddenly dropped into a small room. The tunnel was like 2 feet from the floor of this room. It was unfinished without drywall or windows, but it had a small wooden spool table thingy, a single stool that looked pretty rickety, a teddy bear that looked fairly new, some kids' toys that very much were not new, a small box I couldn't open, and blank papers just thrown everywhere. The room didn't lead anywhere else and didn't have any other doors. The floor of it was super creaky wooden planks spaced just far enough for a tiny trickle of light to seep through. But I couldn't tell where the light was or what part of the house the room was built over. I took the teddy bear to show my mom and her boss ended up letting me keep it. I think I still have it somewhere. I'm not sure what the room was for, but it looked like a kid somewhere along the road made it into a hideaway. It was pretty neat, but super out of place for the fairly remodeled house it was in. A basement. I seriously bought a house and didn't know it had a basement. In my defense, the entry was through a long narrow laundry room away the back of the house, where the sellers kept their dogs. They asked us not to open the door and let the dogs out, and I just never saw the other door. I discovered it when we were moving in. I felt like such a dumb shit. Did you not get a home inspection? That was my first thought. I did, and the inspector went down there. That's where the furnace was, and the state of the furnace was in the report. I just missed him going downstairs. I was showing family the rest of the house during the inspection. About 3 years after we bought the house, we had to get a new washer and dryer. When the old ones were removed, there were so many socks underneath them from the previous owner. When I was 16, my friend's dad bought and sold houses and would pay us to clean them out. In one particular house we found a 2-man horse costume, a male blow-up doll, bag of pot, and sock and boppers. Anyways, we had a great weekend running around our neighborhood in the horse costume with a blow-up doll on top, high as hell. This is amazing. I would guess that this was not the first time those items had been used in that combo. As the owner and renovator of 2 100-year-plus houses, quite a few things The guy who built the one house moved to Canada with his family as a child when they were run out of town for being horse thieves. He made quite a bit of money running horses up from the States, breaking them as he went, and selling them to the Northern RCMP detachments in the 1880s. Judging from the amount of stuff we've found in the walls, he either put it there deliberately or was using the space for storage. Full newspapers, the one from when Thomas Edison died, is in perfect condition. A whole bunch of ceramic marbles, 100-year-old Cupid dolls. These are exceptionally creepy when you dig them out of insulation. A Model T Ford Key, 100-year-old business ledger, hobnail boots that could probably be rehabbed, and worn random children's toys. A collection of some of the worst cowboy poetry and love letters, or a mix of both, and more. We had a small island in a field out behind our house that was pretty grown over. My siblings and I would go out there and play pretend, and there were several slabs of cement we would pretend was Pride Rock from The Lion King. Didn't think much of it at the time, but after a while we would dig out there, and it turns out an old barn had burned down on that patch of land, and it was full of old glass bottles and bricks with my town's name on it. My husband had a car that he bought off a friend. He had it for 4 years and the driver's side window started messing up and getting off track, so we popped the frame off to fix it. In the door frame, we found a handgun and 2 clips wrapped in a white t-shirt. We called the friend he bought it from and turns out that the car was sold to her from a police auction. We have this side room next to some stairs. While we were moving stuff into the room, we noticed a piece of drywall was coming off the wall, so we took it off. Behind it and under the stair were some way old toys, most likely from the 50s. In the same house about a year later, we paid a company to come put new insulation in the attic. When he was done he told me we had a portion of our attic sealed off. So we busted through, found a super old sewing table, and about 15 boxes of pine cones. My parents bought a home that used to be a funeral parlor almost 100 years ago. Dad had never questioned why there was a second bulkhead that went nowhere, and when there was a burst pipe they finally had to cut it open. Inside we found a small walled off room that had hundreds of old bottles, odd equipment, chemical/perfumed salts, stained glass windows from the original building, and a few old ledgers plus accounting books. Parents had no use for it, and a local antique shop owner/town historian happily took it when offered. We had received some cool old copies of photos of how the house originally looked a few years later. I just can't get my head around how big a house must be for there to be random rooms that you don't even know about. I need and use every inch of space in my house. If there are additions to old buildings you'd be really surprised just how much they can fit in new rooms in bizarre places. Last year I helped clean out my great aunt's house and there were at least 3 rooms and an extra attic that I found that I had no idea existed. And I had been to this house dozens of times before. Right? My great aunt had one of those houses. After she died, we explored a little bit. Honestly, we were collecting the valuables to give to her daughter. My great aunt's sister-in-law was a thief. Holy shit. We found a second basement. In a little closet in the back of the house, there was a trapdoor thing with a little staircase leading down to just a little room that must have been walled off from the rest of the basement. Nothing really down there, just some old newspapers and dust. We also found a third bedroom on the 2nd floor. If you went into the bathroom closet, there was another door on one side that opened into a small windowless room. Enough for a bed and a desk and a small dresser. I kinda miss that house. Really wanted to keep it in the family, but unfortunately the rest of the family decided to sell it. After moving into our new house, we found around $14,000 behind the toilet. Apparently the person who lived in the house before us did not believe in banks. Had a friend who found $200k cash in a paper bag in a bedroom closet in a rental in Shippen/Cove area of Stamford Court. They turned it into cops and had to make a list of people feed told in case that person came forward, lying to say it was this. After a certain amount of time it was this, net of taxes of course. In a Safeway parking lot on the ground I found a wallet with $500 cash at a low point in my life. Super broke. Losing everything. Was tempting to keep that $500. The voice of decency inside me urged a look at the driver's license. I took one look at the photo and knew I had to return the money. The face of a tired, weary looking woman stared back at me. She seemed worse off in the photo than me standing there. The address on the license was not far away. I drove over, parked and knocked on the basement suite door. The lady on the license opened the door. She seemed beside herself until I held out the wallet and she burst into smiling tears and thanked deeply. I knew my decision was the right one. You are a very good person. You have a message from the treasure hunter. Like and subscribe to have a slim chance of finding 200k in a bag.